stands on the lands. The university stands on the lands of the Lekwungen and Wasanich peoples whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. I'll let each of the panelists situate themselves, but I'm personally living on campus, calling in from Lekwungen territory, and we'd like to take this opportunity to invite everyone to reflect on how they can support reconciliation in their community, whether that's through activism, academia, or both. We'd like to thank everyone on behalf of the undergraduates of political science for joining this evening to learn about career paths for poli-sci students. Tonight, we're going to have a series of questions for our three panelists, followed by some info about the co-op program, and then a period of questions from the audience. I'm Sam. I'm one of your moderators tonight. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a second-year poli-sci student at UVic. I'm a director at large for the UPS.
And I am Miller. I am also a student at UVic in my third or fourth year, I suppose, in the poli-sci program. And while I'm here on the territories in Victoria, I'm from Smithers, which is in the territories of the Wet'suwet'en people. So just happy to help moderate the event tonight.
All right, now we'll let our panelists each introduce themselves. We'll start off with Jenna.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jenna. I use she, her pronouns. I'm calling in from Lekwungen territories as well. I'm not sure what else you want us to say, maybe or anything else specifically that you want us to mention.
Yeah, or go ahead, Miller.
Yeah, if you just have any sort of info that would help sort of situate the advice or experience that you bring to the table, but whatever you feel is appropriate, yeah.
Sure. Okay, cool. So yeah, just my background essentially. I actually was the president of the UPS probably about 2 years ago for 2 years, and I was director at large, and I also was a communications director. So UPS is a pretty big part of my degree at UVic. I majored in political science and I minored in sociology. After graduation, I ended up working as an office manager for government at the building in City Ranch. Very random and niche, but was an interesting experience. And then after that, I was an intern at the legislature. So that was about a 6-month period where I got to intern at a ministry. I got to be placed within a caucus in the legislature and be a part of all the exciting legislature politics in action. And now I am working for the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction as a policy analyst. So if you have any questions about the internship or just working in government, I'm here.
Awesome, thank you. And next, we will call on Ravi to introduce yourself.
Hopefully everyone hear me all right. Hi, everyone. My name is Ravi Parmar. I'm the MLA for Langford-JDF and BC's Parliamentary Secretary for International Credentials. I'm joining you here in Cumberland on the traditional territories of the Comox First Nations. I apologize, this is not my typical Zoom setup. I am in Cumberland because it seems to have decent high-speed internet connectivity, but I'm underneath a bridge in an area where I don't think I'm typically allowed to park, and so hopefully this goes okay. But if it doesn't, you'll probably get a chance to see all of that. But nevertheless, it's great to be here with you. I apologize again for joining you from my vehicle, but part of my job requires a lot of traveling, and so I really wanted the opportunity to be able to engage with you tonight, and so hope you don't mind me doing it from my vehicle. But I've had the honor of serving as the MLA for Langford-JDF for just under a year. I was elected in a by-election this past June to replace my former colleague and friend John Horgan, who was the former Premier of British Columbia. And just a few weeks ago, I had the honor of being appointed by Premier Eby as BC's Parliamentary Secretary, responsible for international credentials, international education, and supporting newcomers who are making British Columbia their home. Before all of that, before I became an MLA, before I took on this role in government, I worked in government on the political side. I was a chief of staff to a number of ministers and ministerial advisors. So certainly bring some experience in terms of the operations of government. And before that, I was a proud poli-sci grad at the University of Victoria. So I know how some of you must be feeling right now, nearing the end of the semester, lots of exams coming up, lots of final papers. I don't miss that time at all, but and don't envy the position that many of you are in. But know that it'll be worth it in the end when you have your degree. But looking forward to the dialogue tonight and certainly sharing my perspectives with all of you. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you, Ravi, and thanks for making this work. I know you're busy. And Emily, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name's Emily Lowan. I use she and her pronouns. I'm calling in from central Canada, actually, in Montreal and so-called Tiohtià:ke territories, so-called Montreal on Tiohtià:ke territories. And I work for Climate Action Network Canada as their fossil fuel supply lead. So I focus on like sort of a number of files that I'll share more later this evening, but focusing on, you know, how we can equitably transition our energy systems away from fossil fuels, away from natural gas, and towards a brighter future. So yeah, I graduated from political science at UVic and environmental studies last December, and started working for my org, CanRac, I think 2 weeks later. So it was a quick turnaround, but yeah, I'm a longtime divestment campaigner, which really, fed me into work at the university, like the corporate mapping project. And I worked for federal NDP member of parliament, Laurel Collins, for a time. And so I got to know more of the environmental organizations nationally through that work. And yeah, super excited to chat to everyone tonight. And yeah, I'm grateful for the UPS for making space for these kind of like reassuring conversations where we can really help each other out in this tricky post-grad transition time.
Thank you very much. Yeah, definitely appreciate you making it with the time difference. And our fourth panelist is not attending tonight, but we also have Natasha, who is here to talk about some co-op student opportunities. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, Natasha, that'd be great.
Hi, everyone. So I support the political science co-op program, and I'm the co-op coordinator. And I hope to support students here today, anything about career-related questions in general. I work out of the Cornet building, and I'm usually there Monday to Wednesday in person and Thursday, Friday remote. So if you have questions about what co-op can do for you, and I can show a little bit more at the end of today's panel discussion, happy to support. I'm interested in hearing more about the questions you have today. As you can imagine, career development is not something that, or it shouldn't happen right after you graduate, although some of us kind of leave it there. My hope is that you're here because you're interested and you're trying to figure out where you want to go with your political science degree. And so for that, kudos on joining today's panel discussion. And for those who can join us today live, I'm hearing this is recorded, so I'm here to learn from you and hopefully contribute to any conversation that can be worthwhile for your career decision, development, and your learning. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I guess without further ado, we can lead into the questions. Sam, do you want to take it away with the first question?
Yeah, for sure. So any of these questions are going to be open to all of our panelists. You're more than welcome to jump in at any time. So we'll start it off with a couple questions about further education. And so our first question is, what work experience or higher education did you find valuable after securing your bachelor's degree to get where you are today?
I can start off with that answer. So I haven't pursued higher education yet. I'm definitely interested in pursuing it, but I think it's really important to, if you're not too sure about higher education, to take the time to really like explore job options and explore life outside of school. I know a lot of us maybe went straight into school out of high school. So getting that life experience, I think, is really important. It helps you make those decisions about what you want to do for grad school, if that's the path that you take. But our like work experience when I first graduated, I already had the internship for the BC legislature lined up. So that starts in January and I graduated in May. And so I kind of wanted a job that would be helpful on my resume, and I decided to take this job as an office manager, which I like wasn't really a job that I imagined myself in, like a clerking kind of job, doing more administrative work. But if you're interested in working government, literally any government kind of experience is really helpful for your resume. And just understanding if maybe that's the kind of environment you want to work in as well, like take a chance. You may not start off with like the most interesting job in government, but once you're in, you really, you can kind of explore more different areas that you may be interested in and kind of work your way up. They're really helpful in government to help, kind of nurture your interests and your skills. So I'd recommend, if you're interested in working, sometimes you have to take maybe those jobs that aren't your like dream jobs at the beginning, just to gain that experience, because unfortunately, you do hear when you're applying to those jobs, you need like 5 years of experience in this area, and it's just got to start somewhere, right? So that was kind of my experience, at least. I'm not sure if anybody else wants to jump in.
Sure, happy to jump in with my perspective. Thanks so much, Jenna. I'd certainly echo Jenna's perspectives. I think it's so important to be able to, in any role, bring a breadth of experience. And I think most employers look for that, is someone who's diversified and can take on really any challenge, especially in the hot job market we live in today. I struggled a bit with my poli-sci degree. I got elected on my local school board about halfway through my degree and got really distracted. And so I think it ended up taking me about 6 to 7 years to finish my degree. And it was a real gruel at the end. There were some days when I thought, you know what, I wish I could just not finish my degree and come back to it another time, but not advocating that on your behalf at all. Please finish your degrees. But what's great about a poli-sci degree is there's so much that you can do with it. I have not considered, nor I think I will consider any form of higher education, but you never know, that may change. I feel like I'd probably be a much better student today than I certainly was when I first got started right out of high school. But what's great about a poli-sci degree is it really does help you be founded in foundation with how our country, our provinces operate, how our governments operate, and really the systems of our government, and how we really conduct ourselves as a democracy. And I think those are foundational skills that at the end of the day, I think everyone should have. But as poli-sci grads and students, you really have that one leg up over others.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ravi. And that certainly resonates, like that feeling drawn to more like community-based and like practical work during your degree. And I think that's something that a lot of poli-sci undergrads go through, because you're learning about all these like pressing world issues in your program, and it feels hard to not take a full pivot into activism and community service. And to an extent, like I'm really glad that I took a year break to do a co-op in between my like halfway through my degree. So I was director of campaigns at the University Student Union, UVSS, and that's where I carried out a lot of my divestment activism, which then helped me like land my current job. So I feel like following those passions that came out of my poli-sci studies, it was really beneficial in the end, but it definitely did add a good like 6 months to my degree, which was definitely worth it in the end. And yeah, I'm similar to Jenna, like I haven't gotten a master's degree yet, like pretty fresh out of my poli-sci program, but yeah, also really grateful for like the summers and the work experience I got sort of because of the university and my connections to the professors here. Yeah, so like I found like my research assistants, sorry, people are texting me loudly. Being like a research assistant for a summer and working for the corporate mapping project, which was sort of housed under the sociology department, actually was like, yeah, super helpful for my current work. So yeah, thanks for the question.
I wanted to just like mention one quick thing too. If you are interested in higher education, a lot of times, depending on the program you're applying for, if they want people who have work experience or have like work in the field. So yeah, if you are interested in higher education, definitely, yeah, I would recommend working a little bit before you decide to apply. I know that feeling of like wanting to like move on with your life or like move forward, but yeah, nothing is a race. So
Can I
Thank
add
you
a
very
little
much.
bit there? Is that okay,
Oh yeah, of
Sam?
course. Yeah,
So
go
I
ahead.
wanted to be a quick disclaimer. I actually am a psychology graduate student or like a student from psychology. So yes, I don't speak from the lens of graduating with a poli-sci degree, but with a lot of my work that I do and in the previous role as a career educator, the number one thing students come to me, or not number one of the things the students came to me for support with was application documents for graduate programs. And I wanted to echo and bring about the why. Why is it important to have life experience and hopefully get some job experience, even if it's not the dream job? A lot of the times, that exposure, just being out in the field, allows you to better understand industry, allows you to better understand the problems that need to be solved, allows you to understand structures that you would have no idea in terms of institutional structures or like just how things are developed outside of the university institution, to see where do you want to contribute? What do you want to further look into? What are your interests? So that becomes really important because application documents for graduate schools, if you feel like you need to do that, of course, some jobs require a master's degree, depending, and that you won't know again until you go into the field to see what those jobs are, requires it's almost like a statement of intent. There's different words for this. Being on the other side of things when we're looking at statement of intents, number one thing that faculty look at is there a coherent story of why? Why is this student applying to this specific program? Remember, a lot of these graduate programs are competitive. That's not to discourage people to apply. It's just if you're not clear with your why and what is it that you need that particular graduate degree for, you're probably not going to be a strong candidate to be accepted into that graduate program. And this is one of the reasons why I just wanted to bring up more from a career educator lens, having that real world experience. It could be done even simultaneously if you have the ability to do so in your undergraduate years, like Ravi talked about, not being the traditional student and just finishing in 4 years. And there's nothing wrong with that if your path is showing you that experiential learning outside of academia is just as valuable with your coursework. And so I guess what I want to say here is you can find work with your bachelor's degree. You may feel barred with certain jobs because you're learning you need a graduate degree, but why not make an informed decision to know for certain when you're committing more time and money to do further education? And so I wanted to just echo and explain a little bit why some of that advice is being given. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, all of the panelists, and thanks, Natasha, for that addition. Miller, do you want to take us away with our second question?
Yeah, for sure. And I would echo that. That was some really good input there. So our second question on further education is maybe one to help reassure some of our audience here. So how influential do you think grades are when it comes to employers making hiring decisions? Maybe a loaded question, but I think a lot of people worry about it. So
I'm happy to jump in from my perspective, and I'm sure the other panelists will have their points of view. When I go before voters, asking them if I can be their representative, not one has asked for my transcript. So there's one point there, and nor in any of the other, in all seriousness, jobs that I've had, has anyone asked for a copy of my transcript. That doesn't mean that grades don't matter, but I think one should focus on the skills that you gain from the classes that you get an opportunity to participate in. And I wish, again, I learned some of these things when I was in university, that it was more so about those skills and really the critical analysis and all of those different things that the professors were talking about, and not just about getting an A or a B or passing a course. And so I think tongue-in-cheek aside, getting good grades is obviously very important, especially if you are looking at higher education, because I think those will certainly matter in that context. But for employers, they're looking for individuals that can be a part of a team, that can be critical analysts, can ensure that the values of the organizations match the employees, and a whole host of other really important skills that you will not only have engaged with and learned in university, but over the course of your life. And so from my perspective, I don't think grades are the be all or end all.
I can jump in. Yeah, my employer did not ask or look at my actual transcript or anything like that, which I was slightly disappointed by. You work hard for something, you want to shop it around a bit. But I will say about like grades and transcripts and that whole relationship, is that it really is about I sort of the depth of your connection with your professors and how they understand you as a learner. And that doesn't necessarily mean like getting perfect grades or like, having a traditional like linear success path in university. But I think professors really appreciate like authenticity and being like leaned in, being curious and asking questions. All that nerd stuff, showing up to office hours. It's legitimately helped me so much sort of like foster those relationships, whether it be, over the course of a class or several years. Because yeah, at least when I was applying to grad school, ended up getting some great like scholarship offers. I think I really credit a lot of that to the strength of my references. So
I feel like Ravi and Emily have pretty much summarized it all. I think too, just think of like it's not really about your grades, it's about what you're gaining from the classes, and a lot. I think a poli-sci degree can give you really good research skills and writing skills, and so like anywhere that you can take classes that can help build those skills, I would definitely recommend, so that you can put it on your resume. Like I've taken statistical research, you have those skills that you can mention and will attract employers when you're applying for government jobs, for example. They will ask you about like what kind of policy or research analysis experience that you have, and you can say that you took like a policy analysis course, and they will take that into consideration. So just really thinking about how you can leverage the courses that you have taken. And yeah, at the end of the day, they're not going to see your grades. So it's kind of up to you to decide how you kind of leverage that experience that you get in your classes. And I would definitely agree with Emily saying, kind of making those relationship with your profs, because you can use them as references, which is really helpful.
From the co-op lens, I've had students tell me some employers are asking for transcripts. And so I like to push back and empower students to ask the employer, well, first, let's be curating that information. So for instance, if you know your strengths are more on the policy analysis work, there's nothing stopping you from, in your resume, you can write like policy analysis courses and then do your like curated GPA for those specific courses, and not like other courses that may not be your strengths. So it is about showcasing your best set of skills and being strategic, because in the end, if you're a student, I know the audience here, I don't need to convince you that grades themselves aren't a true reflection of your ability. It is there's a lot of other influential factors there, the professor, the course itself, like maybe there was something that happened personally in your personal life, and that's not a reflection of who you really are. Especially if you get like an N grade and that totally pulls the rest of your GPA down. So we are changing employers. Like I would say when you're applying for entry-level jobs, you may have a few employers asking, but I think it's up to you to get ahead of that narrative. So in your cover letter, if you find that your GPA is actually not that strong, talk about the other things that you've been doing as an undergrad student. And so you can, at that point in the cover letter, explain the grades are not a true reflection of my ability to blank, 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 right? What your strengths are. And then you can provide evidence of how you can demonstrate those strengths so that the grade is not fully the one thing that they're focusing on or hyper focusing on. And so you'll notice as you have more and more professional experiences, that will most likely not matter.
Thank you. If no one else has any other comments, that is, yeah, awesome. Especially, I think, crafting your own, like controlling the narrative about your own skills, because you're the only person who knows what you're really capable of. So that was excellent. Sam, do you want to take it away with our next sort of section if no one else wants to jump back in?
Yeah, for sure. So next we're going to talk a little bit about networking. And so our next question is kind of two parts. It's where did you start looking for jobs, and do you have any advice on how you built connections?
I can start for once. I guess working in the like climate advocacy space, I can speak a little bit more to that field, which I think might be like a little bit different from like the traditional like government job application process. Yeah, so when I was doing some of my background research, figuring out like what types of organizations I wanted to work for, I ended up doing about 30 informational interviews, and I started out with like a much lower ambition, but then I became really like addicted to the process of learning from these like individuals who I really admired and like had tracked their careers. And it was really surprising to me because I realized that people were actually really receptive to having like 30-minute phone call or Zoom call or whatever, and supporting like someone who's a political science student looking for work potentially. And it's not super daunting for them. Like they're used to having, like big media calls all day. So just like sharing some advice with some like a soon to be graduate was a pretty simple ask. But yeah, essentially, like once I sort of like gathered a lot of that information from folks, I started looking around at like how climate organizations were working together at the national level, and like which ones were sort of like working in coalition and lobbying as a block, and like how were particular groups moving the policy needle without, sacrificing their values. Like I was trying to sort of like measure all of that from the outside, and now working within that space, I think I was actually pretty accurate, which is kind of interesting to see, obviously with a lot more depth and color now. But there were a few organizations that were posting for like shorter term contracts. And I basically applied to a few of those, and basically it got my resume in circulation amongst those like sort of those collection of organizations. And that in the end was really helpful to sort of like position me as a little bit more, I think, of a trusted person and applicant. And then in terms of how to build connections, yeah, I've gone, as I said, I went super traditional with it. Like I didn't really, you know, I don't really know how to use LinkedIn. Like I guess I kind of used it to like do cold like outreach messages to people, because you can send like a note and sort of like ask to have like a phone call or something. But more generally, like less out of the logistics of it. I yeah, flexing your curiosity and your position as a young person with like potentially less experience, but sort of like asking questions that like show that you're dialed in and you understand some of the dynamics at play in the space and the issues at hand, but you know, are obviously there to learn and absorb information. And then I don't I want to pass it to my other panelists who I'm sure have super smart things to say.
Sure, yeah, I can go next. Networking, talking to people. It's fun. I think you need to come at it in like a genuine way, like with curiosity, like Emily said. Reaching out to people that you admire. People love to talk to others about their careers and support and help others for the most part. Like I've never really met someone who doesn't. It makes them feel good and they feel like they can pass on some good knowledge. Feels good in general. Um, I think you can start leveraging your connections like early on with things that you get involved in at school. Just letting people know that you're interested in work or looking for a job. I kind of had a weird situation that led to a job. So I was working with the CIC a little bit in my undergrad, and the president of the CIC invited me to play on a government league soccer team that he was on. And so yeah, we just had a connection. I told him about how I like to play soccer, like making those genuine connections. And when I was playing on the team, I ended up playing with some people on work in government, and I mentioned that I was looking for a job, and that's kind of how I got my office manager position. It was an auxiliary job. So yeah, sometimes like really random connections can lead to crazy opportunities, and just taking those opportunities can. Um, and in any kind of job that you do land, like say you land in government, or I was the intern at the legislature, take those opportunities to reach out to the people in your network to learn more about their positions. Just send them a message, and I'm sure they'll be down for a quick coffee. And also, if I'm sure all of us here who are on panelists would love to talk to you guys outside of this as well. So I'm definitely open. Yeah, any other questions after this? Reach out to me. Find me on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Don't want to repeat what Jenna and Emily have said. So the only thing in addition I'll add is from a networking and communicating perspective. I think mentorship is always really key, and so finding a good mentor in a field or an area that you have a great interest in is really important. And so I know that could be can always be a difficult task finding that right person, but there's nothing wrong with having more than one mentor. And so if there's someone you look up to, someone whose job you want, or someone whose team you want to be on, I don't think there's anything wrong, as Jenna and Emily have both said, in reaching out and sharing your interests in wanting to know that person and the work they do. And certainly for me, mentorship, I think, has been key in my success in growing the opportunities that I've had in government and the position I am in now. So yeah, mentorship's something I'd suggest.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think, yeah, all great points about, taking advantage of the people that you know and the ways that they want to share their expertise. We have one more question about networking. I'll let Miller introduce that if nobody else has anything else to add.
Can I ask, like, the mentoring piece, Ravi, is that okay? Because I have students asking me this question all the time. How do you organically find a mentor?
That's a really tough question, Natasha. I think I think some of it can be family connections. I think some of it can be within friend groups. But what I would say is, certainly my time as an MLA, I've had a number of high school students in my constituency reach out and say, I'm really interested in the work you do. I follow the news, I follow politics, and I'd just like to learn from you. And whether that's having them come down to the legislature or participate in conversations at my community office, I'd like to think that's a form of mentorship. And so, my saying is, don't be afraid to ask, because besides saying no, which may happen to you, and you should be prepared for that. There's a likelihood that, and I think a higher chance that someone will say yes and be really interested in potentially working with you. So hope that's helpful.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Natasha, for the question. Thanks, Ravi, for the answer. Yeah, the worst that they can say is no. And our next question was exactly that. Do you have any advice on how to build connections? So if anyone else wants to kind of jump there, that would be great. But we can also move on.
I think we touched on that a little bit already with I think most of our panelists have kind of answered that in tandem with the first question. So if we want to move on to our question number 4.
Not to derail, but I thought of one more thing. That's
no,
okay.
That's great. Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I was in like 3rd year, so probably like at a similar point in my degree to a lot of you folks, like similar time of year, like we were like approaching exams and everything. And yeah, I remember learning more about the corporate mapping project and sort of like what they were up to. And just for some reason, I had the audacity to propose a job for myself to their institute head, who happened to be a professor at UVic, Bill Carroll. He's wonderful, super like lovely, approachable guy. And so yeah, that's something that I have had felt like is a really successful tactic, is like thinking like if you really want to work somewhere or like work in the sort of same team or areas as someone, like thinking about their frame of reference and like what they need, and like sort of like analyzing what they do and like what like where you could come in, or like why they need you. Which is like kind of like a daunting thing for sure, but I guess this is sort of like a unique circumstance where a lot of that thinking came together. But I just like encourage you to be like, to just like close your eyes and send the email and just be brave and find ways for yourself to fit in and make the pitch.
I also want to just jump in. What I just thought of one thing too. Think also make genuine connections while you're in undergrad with your like with your classmates, with the people that you're going to school with. You never know where they might end up and where like they could be into an organization that you want to work for. Or Emily was my friend, and like she's doing such cool stuff, and like if I ever thought that would be my career, I'd feel so comfortable to like ask her how to get into it. So yeah, make those genuine connections with the people in your classes, because there's a lot of really, really brilliant people. I get involved as well, like get involved in the UPS and in these different areas, because you'll meet these like passionate people that are gonna do great things in their career. So yeah, that's also, I think, I would definitely.
Awesome. That's great advice. our last piece on networking was asking about social media. Just quickly, if anyone has, the question was around whether or not using LinkedIn was appropriate. I think that was covered, but if anyone wants to quickly just touch on the sort of evolving way that social media is playing a role in marketing ourselves.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm just trying to think of it from my perspective. LinkedIn's relatively new, I think, in the last few years, and so I didn't necessarily get a chance to use it too much during my undergraduate degree, but it seems to be quite an interesting tool. I use it quite a bit now, not, in terms of building connections and also seeing what's happening out there in the world. So highly recommended. Of course, please be mindful of what you post on social media, and I think that's very important. Employers look, as an employer myself now, I look to see what potential candidates could well, rather have posted on social media, and certainly am very mindful of that. Certainly, if your employer represents a brand or an organization where the values of your post, even if they were in the past, even if they were during when you were in high school or university, may not reflect the values of the organization you're trying to work for. So I think most folks are understand that, but use social media as a tool to be able to connect with people and to be able to engage with people. Absolutely. Stay away from Twitter. That's my one advice to folks. That is not a tool to engage with people other than trolls. But LinkedIn, Instagram, all of those other fun stuff, I think are great ways to be able to stay connected. And I just want to also echo one of the comments that Jenna made. I wish I built more connections in my time in university and stayed connected with friend groups. That might be a regret. One of the regrets I have from my time in university. And so you never know that person sitting next to you, what they might be up to 5-10 years from now. So I just wanted to echo Jenna's comments on that point.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Sam, do we want to move on to the next section
Can
here?
Sorry, I
Oh.
don't mean to hold everyone up. I was just trying to
No
see if anyone
worries.
else had any comments for LinkedIn. I do recommend a lot of our students to use LinkedIn for the reason that it's hard to kind of go into different spheres of spaces when you're not part of that space. So what I mean by that are professional groups, organizations. If you're just a student, I don't want to call it just a student, but you're a student, right? Your circle are probably other peers. How do you then go into maybe like climate change advocacy? How do you connect with those people? How do you so you may not even know what's out there. So I think a quick, simple thing that you could do as part of your own research without even building your own profile first is go into LinkedIn, go into the UVic website. I just did it again because I had a session at work today at UVic, and I noticed that I was tinkering around and playing with it. And I played with it again, and I noticed if you just find UVic, click on it and click on alumni, you can even sub-filter just political science. And you can see a number of poli-sci graduates and where they're working now. And you can actually click on their profiles. It seems like you're creeping up on people. I promise you, it is a social acceptable way of doing this and just learning about what are people doing with their degrees? Like what's out there? Where are they working? What are those organizations? Is that a cool organization that, you are interested in terms of their causes and what they're doing? So I think that's also part of a great way to connect with what's happening out there. And hopefully you can build that in with your networking in terms of reaching out for informational interviews. Thank you, Emily, for bringing that up. To be like, hey, that's a really cool job. You also graduated from poli-sci at UVic. Could we have a quick 20-minute chat? I'm going to be graduating soon. I'd like to learn more about what you do. It's not about getting a job. It's about being curious.
Thank you. Yeah, that sounds like a super valuable resource. I'm glad that you spoke to that. For our last question of the structured question and answer period, we have a question about undergraduate experiences. So let's see. It says, "What does the job you have line up with the vision you had in your undergrad?" And then in addition to that, are there any classes or extracurricular experiences that translated well into your current career?
I'm happy to jump in first. No, it definitely didn't. I thought I'd probably be a public servant in some sort of ministry right now, and I'd certainly be happy with that as well. Whether it's I think a policy analyst like Jenna is, or performing some important service within the public service. That was kind of always my thought process and ideas post graduating from university. Um, I did not enjoy the first year and second year courses. I felt like I started having more fun when I got into the third year and fourth year courses, smaller classes, a lot more engaged discussion. I just felt like I wasn't built for being in the room with about 300 people, listening to a prof quickly say what they needed to say in a 50-minute lecture and then be tested on it in a few days later. So that's just something from my perspective. But of course, besides poli sci, there are some really great courses at UVic. I had a family member who was just picking courses, and I was a bit jealous because I feel like the courses have gotten better since I graduated from university myself. And so explore. If there's something that I wish I had done during my time at UVic was take French. I wish I was trilingual. And so that's a regret that I'll have. I told myself I'd do it, and then priorities changed. But yeah, explore, take other courses. I'll never forget. I'm not sure if they still offer this course in the summertime, but I think it was History 240, if I'm not mistaken, with Norm Fenema, Professor Fenema. I don't know if that name rings a bell for anyone, but he teaches or had taught rather history through film, and so many would have perceived that to be a bird course, especially during the summertime. It was actually a very tough course. He's a very tough marker too. But I had a lot of fun because I got a chance to see some pretty incredible films and dissect them in ways that I've never even looked at a film before. And so yeah, take lots of courses. That may not be out of your that may not be in your comfort zone. I think that's really important because again, every course gives you a different skill and a different experience. And now when I'm looking at a film, I look at it a different way because of the experiences I had in that one course, as an example.
Yeah, Ravi, I also wish I took French class, being in Montreal now and working in federal politics. It's tough. I feel like an old dog learning new tricks. But yeah, I tell everyone still in school to use up all your directed study credits. It's a really fantastic way to build a one-on-one relationship with a prof if they have the time and capacity to support a directed study. For one of I think I did 3 in my degree, and it was a really incredible grade boost because you can sort of select and structure the course in a way that's going to like fit your schedule and your timing a little bit better. But yeah, I ended up doing like an internship through MP Laurel Collins' legislative office, as I mentioned before. And so I was doing that like part-time while I was doing other classes. And that was just like a fascinating way to sort of get some of the experience that I was looking for in a legislative internship experience. I didn't end up doing the intern program like Jenna did, but it was great to sort of build some of those relationships that I had sort of my eye on federally, that I wanted to folks that I really wanted to learn from. But for me, it was also a great way to meet all the sort of environmental organizations that I wanted to work with, because yeah, they had like collaborative relationships with Laurel's office. So it was a great way to meet those folks sort of from like a slightly more like advantaged position. And it was super helpful. And yeah,
Oh.
I took so many great poli-sci and environmental studies courses, and yeah, the first year ones are definitely a slog. But yeah, I really enjoyed more of like the climate politics courses specifically, and I'm not sure if it runs anymore, but it was a sociology course that was registered as like a graduate course or upper level. But it was more of a look at corporate capitalism and the ways in which corporate power and the fossil fuel industry collaborate for the downfall of society. But yeah, that was a great course.
Wondering, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, of course. Just so does the job that you have now line up with the vision you had of what you would be doing in your undergrad? And then in addition to that, are there any classes or extracurricular experiences that translated well into your current career?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm working for the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction, specifically on income and disability assistance. And I got the opportunity to actually work on a piece of legislation that actually I saw Ravi participate in the second reading of the debates of that piece of legislation. So honestly, I don't think I ever imagined myself to be doing that type of work at this point in my career, at least. But I definitely did want to do work that I felt aligned with my values. Definitely values of looking at socioeconomic issues and looking for solutions. I definitely think there's so many different avenues that you can do that in, and of course, the different avenues that you take, there'll be pros and cons. Of course, working within government, you do have the constraints of working within government to solve these issues. But at the same time, every experience that you have is valuable. If I decide I don't want to do government anymore, I can do a different path, and the knowledge that I've learned will be really, really valuable. So I feel really grateful that I'm here. For like undergrad stuff that kind of translated into my career, I think that being involved with the UPS is really great. Getting that like public speaking experience, just being comfortable to talk in front of people was huge, because honestly, starting out first year, I was very scared of public speaking. Like, if you're scared of public speaking right now, just know that you can like work through it and get more comfortable. It's like really just a matter of having that experience and having that practice. Because I was pretty shy before, so I think anybody can do that. You just have to kind of put yourself in uncomfortable situations sometimes and put yourself out there. So I think, yeah, being involved in the UPS, and just when you go to clubs and course community days, if there's something that piques your interest, like give it a try. If you want to be a part of more kind of like action orientated kind of organizing, there's that kind of stuff going on campus. So it will translate into whatever you do in the future, because those experiences, you carry them and they kind of like build the professional person you are, or just even the individual you are, and help. It also helps kind of guide you to make the decisions in your career as well, based on those experiences. So yeah, just dive into life and dive into your degree and the opportunities that present themselves. So you never know where you might end up.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Emily, do you add anything else on there?
Yeah, Jenna's comments just got me thinking, and yeah, I know with my work, they actually really valued all the grassroots organizing I did during my university years, and like that was seen as like something really valuable. That definitely like was like a pleasant surprise. And also typically in the climate advocacy space, a lot of people are based in like Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto. So it was initially a really like attractive thing that I was based in BC, but of course now I'm in Montreal. But yeah, just know that like you have all sorts of assets going for you that you might not even realize. And yeah, it sounds corny to say like do what you're passionate about, but like it really it served me well, and it sounds like it has for other panels.
Awesome, thank you. And thanks for all the answers to the questions so far. It's been great. And now we have a chance to learn a little bit about some other potential work experience through the co-op program. Natasha, do you want to take it away and give your pitch?
Sure, thanks. And I was going to say, like, depending, I mean, this is not my event, but if people have questions for the panelists, like, I think that's great as well. So maybe that's a bit of a break so we can have some water and stuff. So I'm happy to not take too long, but just wanted to explain an opportunity that you may not know about. I do see some names that are familiar who are already in the program. But I think co-op is actually a great opportunity for you to see what's out there to develop your skill set. I will say the biggest difference of what co-op is versus just getting a job elsewhere and getting a job is that co-op is a structured, supportive program for you if you feel like you need something like that to kind of give you access to someone like myself who acts like your job consultant and career coach. And so hopefully that is something you see value in doing co-op. You could also do the other thing with co-op is it registers you as a full-time student. And so some of our employers are happy to hire you during your fall and spring academic terms, which is actually a great way to gain experience alongside your degree. I am a huge advocate for trying to ask yourself and learn more about yourself and your skill set while you're doing your undergraduate degree. And the reason for that is I see it firsthand when I support students. When you have a experiential learning opportunity in the professional world, all of a sudden some of the courses that you start learning start to have more relevancy and they start to make more sense sometimes, or you're able to critique it even better to know when a theory is applicable, when it doesn't apply. So I just wanted to bring, I guess I have screen sharing privileges, don't I? So what I'll first do is I'll put in the chat how to apply for co-op. And so that's something we call it the co-op portal or learning in motion. And then I'll do a quick screen share just quickly to get the main things out in terms of just next steps if you're interested and what to do. So please bear with me as I have done this before, but it's been a while. Sharing screen, here we go. Great. And so let's go to the beginning. So the co-op program has one admissions period. It opens June 10th. This is a great way to get hands-on work experience related to the field that you're studying. If I could sum it up, you get paid, you can explore careers, and you get to find out what you enjoy and what you're good at. We do want students to apply by September 10th. So although this is early to promote, I just want to feel free to put it in your calendar so you don't miss the deadline. That's the website again, and I put it in the chat. Oops, still loading. A couple of things I wanted to quickly show as it's loading are where our students are getting jobs. And so you can see where some of the employers are. I will say while this is loading, if you're interested in government roles, majority of our government jobs for entry level, and I know we have panelists here who are working for the government, so please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. They do use the co-op portal to help students find entry-level jobs specifically for co-op. So those are 4-month job. For the job in terms of co-op, it's just a 4-month commitment. Oh, of course, my program not responding as I'm live. Can people see my screen still? Okay, great. So what I wanted to say is for some employers, they only use the co-op portal to recruit students. So just know that in terms of another advantage with co-op. In terms of why do co-op? We talked about engaging in dynamic learning and getting to really understand what the world needs and getting access to industry in terms of knowing what else is out there. And then hopefully getting to actually apply your knowledge. So I think university is great, courses are great. We learn a lot from courses, but then there's the limit in terms of how you can actually showcase your knowledge, and that's usually through papers or essay writing and exams. So this is another way of being able to go beyond that in terms of the learning opportunities to be able to actually apply this stuff in the practical world. Just in terms of quick career benefits, you can gain up to 16 months, and that's doing up to 4 co-op work terms, which are 4 months long. You get paid experience during your work terms. It can help with tuition and other living costs. And then, of course, the hope is that you get to connect with other individuals and have a network of people that you get to connect with before you graduate. Our data shows, this is 2018-2019 data, that co-op graduates or graduates from doing co-op traditionally find jobs faster than their peers who don't participate in co-op. Because again, you're building that trust, you're getting trained already, and you're leaving with having people who can vouch for you and give you great references on your resume. You actually have something to show for in terms of really getting experience, especially for those entry-level jobs that are asking for 2 years or 5 years of experience. And so all your experiences count, and co-op can really give you a bit of a leg up when you're applying for those jobs. Here's where some of our employers are coming from, so if that's interesting to you. And something I wanted students to know is beyond private and public sector jobs, is that we actually have international co-op opportunities as well. So just a quick snapshot of where students have been. These are employers who partner with us at co-op for various opportunities for our students to go and learn. So some of these are research oriented, some of these are policy analyst oriented, but that's great if you're interested in going overseas for international co-op as well. And so for local co-op jobs, here's a quick snapshot. It is not comprehensive, but just an idea of the kind of jobs our students are getting. We're also very open for you securing and finding your own job. And we encourage that because we think networking is really important, but also to recognize that we only have certain, that doesn't mean our jobs are the only jobs in the portal, but to find jobs that you're interested based on your interest, we encourage you to do that because that's a higher chance of actually securing the job. So you don't have to go through a rigorous interview process. Sometimes just connecting with the right people, if they are, impressed with how you've conducted yourself and you talk to them and they're assessing you out, they're more likely than not are happy to follow through if they have the budget to hire you. And on budget, I will end my quick presentation today on co-op on the fact that another incentive to do a co-op job is that the government provides up to 50% in funding. So different funding sources are available for the organization as long as it's a new person that they're hiring, in terms of if they haven't hired other co-op students in the past or they're adding another co-op student on top of their team. So that can, if it's STEM related, it's up to 70% of wage subsidies for the employer. And if it's not STEM related, it's up to 50%. So just know that, and you can use that as a little bit of an incentive when you do network and connect with the other employers. And so again, we have one intake period, and so that will be happening. Applications open up in June, and I would encourage you to apply by September 10th. Do know that there is a mandatory prep course that we encourage all students to have so that it increases your success in securing a co-op job. That starts the first week of October and the last week of November. There are no readings involved, and there are activities as opposed to assignments. And so that is, again, just to make sure you feel prepared and to encourage your success in securing something if you would like to do the co-op program. And if you'd like to connect with me, I'll put my email in the chat. And that's everything I wanted to share for today. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Natasha. And yeah, I think having your email in the chat is a super good resource. I encourage people to reach out to you. And now moving on, we're going to open it up to our open Q&A period. Our first question is for Jenna, specifically asking, what was your biggest takeaway from doing the internship at the legislature?
The biggest takeaway. Honestly, I think it was like a really great opportunity. I got to do a placement as an intern in I got to be at the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction, and I ended up getting a job where I interned. So I really feel like I wouldn't have gotten that job if I didn't do the internship. So that was my biggest takeaway from the program, is that I got a job out of it. But overall, it was just a great way to like really understand how BC politics runs, because you get to be kind of all the different levels. And that like knowledge was really valuable to really understand the process of a question period. What does question period look like? What does it look like for a bill to move through the legislature, the committee period, debates, and yeah, I think that was a really good experience to understand that, and be able to, now that I work my job, I can kind of help my coworkers understand that process too, because a lot of times even in government there's some mystery to what even really goes on in the legislature. And another good takeaway, just got to meet like I was a NDP caucus intern, so I got to meet like all of the NDP MLAs, which was really cool. And I got to go on a constituency assignment, and I went to Vernon, and I also went up to North Island. So being in the actual constituencies and exploring what that like on the ground community work was like was really interesting as well. So that wasn't one takeaway, but that was many takeaways. But it was overall a really great experience, and would really highly encourage people to apply to that program.
Thank you. Thanks for the answer. Yeah, we're actually getting quite a few questions from the audience now. And our next question, I suppose, is specific to Emily. The question was, what are directed studies and how do you do one? And could Emily explain on how expand on how directed studies were helpful for their degree and career?
Yeah, I'm trying to find like the form. I'll share it later if I come across it. Basically a directed study, I believe in political sciences, there's two courses that you can take as directed study. It's called like Poly, like 390 and 490. I might be wrong about that, but that you can contact the political science like secretary, like admin office, and they'll send you the paperwork that you can fill out with your professor that basically allows you to do a specific project of interest. It can be like more extracurricular, like the internship that I did, or you can do like a deep dive on whatever topic. Maybe it's like you're preparing for an honors or something like that, and you want to get credit for it. Yeah, so it's hard to explain because it can be like literally anything you want as long as a professor agrees and like signs off on it, essentially. So there's really like so many opportunities there. I think it's really exciting. So for instance, like when I was doing the Jamie Castles Undergraduate Research Award, I got directed studies credit for that as well. So yeah, I was able to tack that onto my workload of this semester, and yeah, made things a lot more manageable. Yeah, I just really recommended like as I mentioned, for building that like one-to-one relationship with a prof, because you get to really like show them, I don't know, your interest area and like the way in which you learn. And so you basically work with them to define like a sort of a syllabus and like what your like contractual agreement will be for like evaluation and like how the course is weighted. But yeah, in the case of the 3 directed studies I did, they were all it was very like self-directed and super supportive. So yeah, really recommend it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. In the interest of time, I think we'll ask our panelists to very briefly answer this next question. Let's see, we have, it says, how long was the learning curve when you began working after graduation? Were you just thrown into the work? So maybe try to keep that to just a minute or two each.
I think for my perspective, any job that I have had the opportunity to be in, I've always been in that learning curve. I don't think one can truly master a job. And I think once you have, and if you're lucky enough to ever be in that position, you probably get a little bit bored because you've mastered it. So always be very curious when taking on those roles because there's always something new to learn each and every day.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Yeah, I feel like for the most part, once I started my policy analyst job, yeah, you just kind of get thrown in there. Maybe you'll have a mentor to help you through, but yeah, it's kind of up to you to try your best to fit in there, but also like ask questions and be curious and just continue to, you know, ask for that feedback, things like that. And people are pretty patient. They'll help you along and they'll want to help you. So there's a learning curve, but also have a lot more time because you don't have to study in the evening. So your brain doesn't hurt as much all the time when it does in school. So you have a lot more relaxed time to process what you're learning. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, Jen, I was going to say the same thing. Is like I was actually really surprised that I had to adjust to a little bit more like work-life balance after graduating, and that's not something that I fully expected. And there's definitely like more intense periods where, but yeah, undergrad is intense, and you're doing a really hard thing right now. So just know that there are, yeah, it does get better. At least it did for me. Yeah, I'll keep it there in the interest of time.
Thank you. Yeah, our next question. Let's see. We have, what is one lesson that you've learned since starting your career that you wish you could have known at the beginning?
Ooh, turn off my video. Okay, I think more in terms of like, yeah, politics, advocacy world, it was a little bit of a learning curve on like yeah, not like belaboring the point, because like you're in rooms with like communication experts and people that are like they want the information in very like digestible yeah, in the most like sort of concrete digestible form. And I don't think political science actually teaches us to be very good communicators. So that was like one sort of like lesson and learning curve on how to, you know, really like get to the point and not use flowery language. But yeah, I think one lesson as well is like really like the art of facilitation. And yeah, showing up in spaces where you're really like in over your head, but you know, you do have the advantage of being able to sort of watch what's happening in a room and to ask good questions and be curious, because you know you're just starting out, and so you know you can still really guide conversations in your own way and to yeah, I don't know, lean into those sort of unique powers of being a young person and a learner.
Feel like Jen and I were looking at each other to see who was going next. Um, a couple things, just bouncing off of what Emily just shared. Know that every day, a kind of similar answer to the last one, is a learning journey, and so always go into it being very curious, willing to learn, diversify your skills set, and just go in open-minded, willing to be a learner. I think all of us are lifelong learners, whether we're in university or not. And so I would add that perspective. And one other thing specific to, if any of you ever go into partisan politics or end up serving in different roles and levels of government. One of my political mentors said to me recently, you wouldn't worry about what people think of you if you knew how seldom they did. So that's something that I keep in mind these days, especially during tough days.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. I think even for me, Ravi, as I'm still like new in my career, just people aren't really thinking about you after work too much. So if you said something kind of like you flubbed your words or whatever, no one really notices. So yeah, just keep just coming, showing up authentically. One thing I think I wanted to mention about like post grad is kind of get like a post grad blues. Like after like I did, and I heard from like other friends after you graduate, and maybe you're kind of just like floating and you're trying to find your next move, your next job. And you know, school gives you a lot of structure. It gives you a lot of like social connections. It's like really easy to meet people in school at university. And then all of a sudden that just goes away, and you kind of like you're kind of creating a new identity in a way. So I think that kind of was something that hit me harder than I thought it would. And you kind of like you're like, oh God, I have to figure out what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. But you don't. You just have to like take things at one step at a time and really just embrace that fact that you can, you know, you can like nourish relationships with people that you really want to be around, and not just because you're around them because you're in class with them. And you can you know, really look for opportunities through volunteering as well is a really great way to kind of get out of the community. And yeah, so that's kind of how I held my post-grad blues, but I do think it's a very real thing. And I do miss learning actually in like one of those structured environments. Yeah, that's probably why I hope to go to grad school. But if you are like also graduate and you're like so done with school, that's awesome, totally normal, and should embrace that as well. Right? For that time. So that's my version of that.
All right, thank you very much. I think we have time for one more question, just a short one. We have our panelists are all UVic grads, and so someone asked if you have a favorite UVic poli-sci professor that you had. So if you guys wanted to answer that, it's just a fun way to end it.
The hard question. We love them all.
I think for me, I'm hopefully I'm not butchering his name, but I took a number of courses.
Ravi, I think you're frozen.
Sorry, I think it might have been a bit of a delay on my end. I think Matt James. I don't know.
I second that. I also
Mic drop.
love Matt James.
As a current student, I also second that.
Yeah, maybe mine's controversial, but I love Jamie Lawson. We had like just yeah, I learned so much about like analytical writing from him. Like he gave me probably some of the most like, you know, helpful, like detailed feedback on my papers. And I felt like I really grew as a writer and thinker from him. And yeah, he made like so much space for me in office hours and everything. So yeah, really was grateful for his mentorship. And yeah, I did a directed study with him and with the internship and everything. And yeah, no, he has an excellent dry sense of humor. So big love to Jamie.
Is Rita Demu still or Dr. Demu still teaching poli-sci?
Okay, yes, she is. Sorry. Yeah, she's still in poli sci, but she's on a like leave right now, but she's still there.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend a class from her as well if you get the chance. I took a race in Canada politics class with her, which was really, really impactful. So yeah, she's very inspiring.
I also second that. It was like you can't choose just one, but yeah, that was a fantastic course. And if she's back from leave, definitely recommend Rita.
Yeah, Emily and I took that class together and we did a group project together too. And we did like a podcast. So that was fun.
Well, thank you all very much. This has been an excellent little career night. I feel like we had some great answers to some important questions. So yeah, we really appreciate everyone being here. And I think it is about time to wrap it up. And we just want to sort of plug the UPS details for the attendees. Sam, do you want to go ahead with that, or?
Yeah, certainly. So we have a couple important things coming up. Primarily our spring elections are on March 29th, which is next Friday. So all poli-sci students are encouraged to run. I'm sure you've heard about it through classroom talks and through your emails. And we have this Friday opportunity for people to come talk about their platforms if they're interested in running. And yeah, and then the following Friday, voting and the election itself. All this information and tons more is on our Instagram, which I've put in the chat. I think that's all I have to say. And other than just, again, thank you very much to all of our panelists and everyone who attended tonight. I think it was super informative and I'm really glad to have seen you all here.
Thanks so much, everyone. This has been really great. And yeah,